Okay, welcome back. Let's now take this same data, the sundata.txt file we worked with a minute ago, and which contains the hours of sunlight for each day of the year for a year. And let's assume someone has given us this data and we'd like to figure out the average amount of sunlight. And in addition to finding the average, let's find the minimum sunlight for the year, and also the average. Okay, we can modify our code without too much trouble. We can create to get the average, we'll have to get the total amount of sunlight and divide by 365. So we'll create a variable total. Make sure you start it off at 0, and then inside the loop we'll add on to the total the amount for that particular day, which is called x, and then at the end, doesn't matter before or after you close the file, doesn't make a difference. We could print out the average, which would be equal to the total divided by 365. Now the total I've set up as a float, so I don't need to put a 0.0 there to force it to be a floating point division. Okay, other question. So that'll do the average. Let's find the minimum we got for any day of the year. So to do that, let's create another variable. And since all the hours of sunlight were integers, let's make the minimum an integer. And let's start it off at a big number, something bigger than the minimum for sure is going to be. So let's start it off at 24 hours. There's the minimum can't be bigger than 24 hours of sunlight. Okay, so what we want to do is look at for a particular day, if the amount of sunlight we got in that day is less than the minimum, then we want to reset the minimum to be that value. So if the minimum is 24 and the first one says 11 hours of sunlight, that means the new minimum will be 7 hours or 11 hours of sunlight. And then if later on in the year we get a day that had 3 hours of sunlight, 3 would be less than the current minimum, so the minimum would then be set to that current value, which we know is smaller. So if ever we detect a value smaller than the minimum, this will set the minimum to be that value. And then at the end here, we could just print out the minimum, and we're all done.